Hey there, welcome back to Story Slices, where we slice through the best Reddit tales just for you. Let's dive right into the first story. The first one is the Tittle story, and it starts like this. I never thought I'd be writing this story, but here we are. About 5 years ago, I decided to fulfill my lifelong dream of building a cabin in the wilderness. After years of saving and planning, I found the perfect 20-acre plot of land in rural Montana, about 30 miles from the nearest town. The property was completely undeveloped, surrounded by national forest, with a small stream running through it. It was exactly what I wanted. Peaceful, isolated, and all mine. I'm a carpenter by trade, and I'd spent years studying sustainable building practices and off-grid living. I took a year-long sabbatical from work to build my dream cabin. It's not huge, about 800 square feet, but it's perfectly designed for my needs. Solar panels for electricity, a well for water, composting toilet, the works. I did most of the work myself, with some help from my brother on the bigger tasks. It was the hardest year of my life, but also the most rewarding. The nearest development was about 2 miles away, a relatively new subdivision of luxury mountain homes called Pine Valley Estates. When I bought my land, there were only about 5 houses there. I didn't pay much attention to them. They were out of sight from my property, and I was focused on my own project. Fast forward to last year. Pine Valley Estates had grown to about 30 homes, all massive McMansions that looked completely out of place in the wilderness. One day, I received a certified letter from something called the Pine Valley Estates Homeowners Association. I almost laughed when I opened it. The letter stated that my property was in violation of multiple homeowner association covenants and listed a bunch of ridiculous complaints. My solar panels were unsightly, my composting toilet was unsafe and unsanitary, my rainwater collection system was unauthorized, and my cabin's rustic appearance decreased property values in the area. They demanded I make immediate changes to comply with their rules and pay $2,500 in fines. I called the number on the letter and spoke to Karen, yes, that was actually her name, from the Homeowner Association Board. Ma'am, I said politely, I think there's been a mistake. I'm not part of your homeowner association. My property was here before your development even existed. That's incorrect, Karen replied with the confidence of someone who's never been told no. All properties in this area fall under our jurisdiction. We've recently expanded our boundaries to include outlying properties that affect our community's aesthetic appeal. I couldn't help but laugh. That's not how this works. You can't just claim jurisdiction over land you don't own. I never signed any homeowner association agreement. Well, she said, her voice getting that special kind of snippy that only homeowner association board members can achieve, we've had complaints about your structure. Several of our residents can see it from their hiking trails, and it's affecting their property values. We're being generous by giving you 30 days to comply before further action is taken. Further action? I asked. What exactly do you think you can do? We have ways of dealing with non-compliant properties, she said ominously. I suggest you consult our guidelines and make the necessary changes. I hung up and immediately started documenting everything. I made copies of my property deed, land survey, and all original purchase documents. I also took photos of my property boundaries and installed security cameras, something I never thought I'd need in the middle of nowhere. The next few weeks were interesting, to say the least. First, homeowner association board members started showing up at my property, taking pictures and making notes. I put up no trespassing signs, which they ignored. Then they started leaving violation notices taped to my front door. The situation escalated when they sent a compliance inspector to my property. I was working on my vegetable garden when a guy in khakis and a polo shirt came marching up my driveway like he owned the place. Sir, I'm here to conduct an inspection of your property, he announced, pulling out a clipboard. I stood up, covered in dirt, and crossed my arms. No, you're not. This is private property, and you're trespassing. You don't understand, he said, continuing to walk toward my cabin. As a representative of the Pine Valley Estates Homeowner Association. As a representative of myself, I interrupted, I'm telling you to leave my property immediately. You have no authority here. He didn't like that. We'll see about that, he said, taking more photos before finally leaving. The next day, I received another certified letter, this time threatening legal action. They claimed my property was causing significant harm to their community and demanded I either comply with their regulations or sell my property to the homeowner association at fair market value, which they generously offered to determine themselves. That's when I decided to get serious. I contacted a lawyer who specialized in property rights and homeowner association disputes. Sarah, my lawyer, actually laughed out loud when I showed her the letters. This is one of the most ridiculous overreaches I've seen, she said, shaking her head. They have absolutely no legal authority over your property. None. We sent a strongly worded cease and desist letter to the homeowner association board, explaining in detail why they had no jurisdiction over my property and demanding they stop harassing me. We included copies of all relevant documents and laws. Their response? They sued me. The lawsuit was a joke, but it still had to be taken seriously. They claimed my property was causing irreparable harm to their community, that I was violating local zoning laws, I wasn't, and that their homeowner association had the right to enforce their standards on neighboring properties to protect their investment. The discovery phase was enlightening. We found emails between homeowner association board members discussing their expansion strategy. Turned out they'd been trying to force several other property owners in the area to join their homeowner association or sell their land. They wanted to create what they called a premium wilderness experience, basically, a fancy gated community in the middle of nowhere. The most interesting document was an email from Karen to the board. Once we get that eyesore of a cabin removed, we can extend our hiking trails through his property. The views from there would be perfect for our planned luxury camping area. That's when it clicked. This wasn't just about property values or aesthetics. They wanted my land, and they thought they could bully me into selling. The court date was set for 3 months out. During that time, the harassment continued. Homeowner association members would accidentally wander onto my property while hiking. They called the county repeatedly with false complaints about code violations. They even tried to report my composting toilet to the EPA, who, by the way, actually approved of my sustainable waste management system. One day, I caught 2 board members actually measuring my property line with a tape measure. When I confronted them, they claimed they were conducting a survey for trail planning. "You're planning trails on my private property?" I asked. "This will all be homeowner association property soon enough," one of them said smugly. "We always get what we want." I added that interaction to my growing pile of documentation. The court date finally arrived. I put on my best flannel shirt and jeans, hey, I wanted to be comfortable, and headed to the courthouse. The homeowner association showed up with 3 lawyers in expensive suits, clearly expecting to intimidate us with their resources. Their argument was basically that they had the right to protect their property values by any means necessary, and that my unconventional dwelling was hurting their investment. They brought in a real estate agent who testified that my cabin could potentially reduce their property values by 15%. Sarah, my lawyer, systematically destroyed their case. She presented evidence that my property predated their development, that I had all proper permits and approvals, and that their homeowner association had no legal authority beyond their actual boundaries. She also presented those emails showing their true intentions. The judge, an older woman who looked like she'd seen it all, was not impressed with the homeowner association's arguments. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," she said, peering over her glasses at their lawyers. "You're claiming the right to enforce your rules on a property that isn't part of your homeowner association, wasn't part of your original development, and is owned by someone who never agreed to join your association?" "Your Honor," their lawyer began, "we have precedent for—" "No, you don't," the judge interrupted. "I've reviewed your cited cases, and none of them apply here. What you're attempting is a hostile takeover of private property through harassment and frivolous litigation." She turned to look at me. "Mr. Johnson, how long have you owned this property?" "5 years, Your Honor. I built everything myself, with all proper permits and inspections." She nodded and turned back to the homeowner association's lawyers. "This case is dismissed with prejudice. Furthermore," she proceeded to issue an injunction preventing the homeowner association or its members from entering my property or attempting to enforce their rules on me. She also ordered them to pay my legal fees and awarded me damages for harassment. But the best part? She added a specific clause preventing them from attempting to acquire my property through any means for the next 10 years. Their expansion strategy was dead in the water. As we left the courthouse, Karen and the other board members looked like they'd swallowed lemons. Their lawyer was already trying to calm them down as they talked about appeals. Sarah patted me on the back. "They won't appeal," she said confidently. "They know they'll lose, and it'll just cost them more money." She was right. They didn't appeal, but they weren't done trying to make my life difficult. A week after the court decision, they started construction on a massive wall along the property line nearest to my land. It was clearly meant to hide my cabin from view of their precious hiking trails. The wall cost them a fortune and looked absolutely ridiculous in the middle of the wilderness. Funny thing is, that wall became a symbol of their defeat. Locals started calling it the Great Wall of Karen, and it actually attracted more attention to my cabin than ever before. People would stop to take pictures of the contrast between their pretentious wall and my humble cabin. But the real victory came about 6 months later. The real victory came when the County Planning Commission held a public hearing about Pine Valley Estates' proposed expansion. They wanted to build another 50 homes and that luxury camping area they'd mentioned in their emails. What they didn't expect was the opposition they'd face. Word had gotten around about their attempted land grab and the ridiculous wall. Local residents, environmentalists, and even some of their own homeowner association members showed up to protest. I attended the hearing but didn't need to say anything. Plenty of others did the talking for me. One elderly resident, who'd lived in the area for 40 years, stood up and said, "These people built their mansions in our wilderness and now they want to turn it into a gated community? They're destroying exactly what makes this place special." The environmental impact study was particularly damaging to their plans. Their proposed development would have severely affected the local wildlife corridors and watershed. The same stream that ran through my property, providing water for local wildlife, would have been redirected for their luxury camping experience. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny their expansion. But here's where it gets really interesting. The publicity from the hearing attracted the attention of a state environmental protection group. They discovered that Pine Valley Estates had already violated several environmental regulations during their initial development, including unauthorized modifications to protected wetlands. The resulting investigation and fines hit them hard. Several board members, including Karen, were forced to resign. The new board, led by more reasonable people, actually apologized to me and took down that ridiculous wall. They replaced it with a natural barrier of native plants, which was much more appropriate for the setting. Some of the newer homeowner association residents even started coming to me for advice about sustainable living. Turns out, not everyone who bought those massive homes wanted to live the way Karen and her crew envisioned. Several homeowners began installing solar panels and starting their own vegetable gardens, much to the former board's dismay. One day, about a year after the court case, I was working on my garden when a couple from Pine Valley Estates stopped by. They were walking their dog and wanted to see my rainwater collection system. "We've been trying to reduce our water usage," the woman explained, "but the old board wouldn't let us install anything unsightly. The new board is much more reasonable." I gave them a tour of my setup, and we ended up having a great conversation about sustainable living. They became regular visitors, and through them, I met other neighbors who shared my interests in conservation and self-sufficiency. The irony wasn't lost on me. The homeowner association's attempt to force me out had actually led to positive changes in their own community. More residents started questioning the excessive restrictions and focusing on environmental responsibility rather than just property values. I even started teaching workshops on sustainable building and gardening, with many Pine Valley residents attending. The new homeowner association board actually sponsored some of these workshops, seeing them as community education opportunities. 3 years have passed since that court case. My cabin still stands exactly as I built it, a testament to the fact that you can fight City Hall, or in this case, an overzealous homeowner association, and win. The stream still flows, the wildlife still visits, and the wilderness around me remains wild, just the way I wanted it. The former board members? Most of them sold their homes and moved away, unable to accept the community's new direction. Karen, I heard, moved to a gated community in Florida. Somehow, that seems fitting. Last month, I received another certified letter. For a moment, my heart skipped a beat, but it wasn't from the homeowner association. It was from a national sustainable living magazine. They wanted to feature my cabin and the story of how it helped transform a community's approach to wilderness living. I wrote back accepting their offer on one condition. They had to include information about property rights and how to fight back against homeowner association overreach. They agreed enthusiastically. The article came out last week. It's already generated dozens of emails from people facing similar situations, asking for advice. I answer everyone, sharing what I learned from my experience. Document everything, know your rights, get good legal help, and never back down when you're in the right. Looking out my cabin window now, I can see the mountains in the distance, the stream flowing through my property, and the native plants that replace that absurd wall. In the end, this wasn't just about protecting my property, it was about preserving a way of life that respects both individual rights and the natural world. The workshop I'm teaching this weekend is fully booked, mostly with Pine Valley residents wanting to learn about composting and solar power. Life has a funny way of working out sometimes. What started as an attempt to force me out ended up bringing the community together in ways nobody could have predicted. My cabin stands as a reminder that sometimes the best way to change a community isn't through rules and regulations, but through example and education. And yes, sometimes you have to fight for what's right, but the victory can be sweeter than you ever imagined. The sunset's coming now, painting the sky in colors no homeowner association could ever regulate. Think I'll sit on my porch, sip some tea, and enjoy the view. After all, that's why I built this cabin in the first place. Update: it's been 2 years since my last post, and I thought you all might appreciate hearing how things turned out. The Sustainable Living magazine article ended up having a much bigger impact than I expected. It went viral in environmental and property rights circles, and I started getting interview requests from news outlets and documentary filmmakers. I turned down most of them. I'm not looking for fame, but I did participate in a documentary about homeowner association overreach because I felt the message was important. The biggest change came when a state senator read the article and contacted me. She'd been working on legislation to limit homeowner association powers, particularly their ability to enforce rules beyond their boundaries. She asked me to testify at a state senate hearing about my experience. I'm not comfortable with public speaking, but this was too important to pass up. In March last year, I found myself at the state capitol, telling my story to the Senate committee. The room was packed with people who had similar experiences with aggressive homeowner associations. My testimony, along with others, helped push through the Property Rights Protection Act, which explicitly prohibits homeowner associations from attempting to enforce their rules on non-member properties. It also requires homeowner associations to prove actual, measurable harm before they can sue property owners over aesthetic issues. The law passed with bipartisan support and went into effect 6 months ago. Karen actually showed up at the hearing to oppose the bill. She'd become some kind of homeowner association rights activist in Florida and flew in specially. When it was her turn to speak, she tried to paint homeowner associations as victims of anti-community elements, whatever that means. The senators weren't buying it, especially after she admitted under questioning that she'd never actually suffered any financial losses from neighboring properties. As for Pine Valley Estates, they've become a different kind of community entirely. The new board has embraced sustainable living practices, and they've actually won several environmental awards. My workshops are now official community events, and we've helped over 20 households install solar panels and create sustainable gardens. Remember that luxury camping area they wanted to build? The land they were eyeing got turned into a wildlife sanctuary instead. The environmental group that investigated them helped secure the funding, and now it's protected forever. We've documented several endangered species using the corridor, including a family of wolverines that den near the stream. Last month, something happened that really showed how much things have changed. Pine Valley's community center needed repairs after a harsh winter, and they decided to do it the sustainable way. They hired me to oversee the renovation, incorporating solar panels, rainwater collection, and locally sourced materials. The same homeowner association that once called my cabin an eyesore now wants to replicate my methods. The best part? During the renovation, we found documents from the old board hidden in a wall cavity, probably stashed there during the changeover. Among them was a detailed plan to force out all non-homeowner association properties in the area through legal harassment and what they called strategic pressure. They had even created a slush fund for litigation. The new board turned these documents over to the state attorney's office, as some of the actions described might have been illegal. This led to an investigation, and last week, 3 former board members, including Karen, were charged with attempted real estate fraud and harassment. They're facing both criminal charges and civil suits from other property owners they targeted. The court date is set for next spring, and yes, I'll be testifying again. My lawyer Sarah is now teaching seminars about property rights and home owner association law. She uses my case as an example of how to fight back legally and effectively. She's helped dozens of other property owners stand up to homeowner association overreach, and she credits our case with showing her the scale of the problem. The Great Wall of Karen site has been completely rehabilitated with native plants, and it's become a popular spot for local wildlife. We've even installed educational signs about local ecosystems and sustainable living practices. School groups come for field trips now, and I sometimes give talks about wilderness conservation. My cabin hasn't changed much, still 800 square feet of sustainable, off-grid living. But the land around it has flourished even more now that it's protected. The stream is cleaner than ever, thanks to community conservation efforts, and we've seen an increase in wildlife diversity. The magazine article led to a book deal, which I initially resisted, but after thinking about it, I decided to write a practical guide to both sustainable living and fighting homeowner association overreach. It's not about my story so much as a handbook for others facing similar situations. It'll be published next spring, and all proceeds will go to a legal fund for property owners fighting unreasonable homeowner association demands. Looking back, what started as a fight to protect my property turned into something much bigger. It's shown me that one person standing up for what's right can lead to real change. The new state law has already prevented several other homeowner associations from trying similar tactics, and other states are looking at passing similar legislation. I still get emails from people facing homeowner association issues, but now I can point them to real resources and legal protections. The community here has become what it should have been all along, a place where people respect both individual rights and the environment. As for me, I'm still enjoying my quiet life in the wilderness, but with better neighbors than I ever expected to have. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's showing others a better way forward. The criminal case against the former board member starts in April, and I'll update again after it's done. But for now, I'm content knowing that not only did we win, we helped change things for the better. And that ridiculous wall? It's become a symbol of what happens when you try to wall off the wilderness. Nature always finds a way to reclaim its space. The next one is entitled People's Story. For context, me and my boyfriend Sam have been together for a year and a half. We broke up last summer for 2 months but got back together. During our break, Sam met up with his ex-girlfriend Rachel, whom he had dated for 4 years prior to our relationship. They only met up once, and nothing came of it. However, Rachel still has feelings for Sam and was hoping they would rekindle things. Rachel was enraged and threw a fit whenever she found out that me and Sam got back together. She sent him a lot of really nasty messages and continued to do so for several months afterward, even though he never responded to her. Rachel and Sam both have mutual friends who are getting married. They were both asked to be bridesmaids and groomsmen in the wedding. In February, Rachel asked the bride if it would be okay if Sam did not have a +1 for the wedding because she wouldn't be able to handle seeing him with anyone else. Whenever Sam found this out, he immediately contacted both the bride and groom. They assured him that Rachel's request would not have an impact on the decision for a +1. Since then, she has still continued to try to reach out to Sam, including going as far as contacting me via Instagram regarding the upcoming wedding. She started to harass me and even admitted that contacting me was for her own self-gain. In April, me and Sam were both invited to the engagement party. Of course, Rachel was there, but we were having such a great time that we barely even noticed her existence. At 3 a.m. that night, Rachel texted Sam yet again, degrading both of us. She told Sam that he was not going to be getting a +1 to the wedding and to not make a fuss about it like last time. I found the comment odd because invitations have not been sent out yet. Why is she the one telling him this instead of the bride or groom? Regardless, Sam finally responded to Rachel and told her to never contact us again. Fast forward to the present day, Sam got the wedding invitation and it did not include a +1. He contacted the groom, and the response was that they had to prioritize other couples who have been together longer, live together, and/or who both know the bride and groom due to the budget. I know 100% that a wedding should only be about the bride and groom and what they want. If they don't want Sam to have a +1, that is their call. I'm not entirely convinced that Rachel did not have a part in the decision. She is a lot closer to the bride than Sam is to the groom. So Ida for asking my boyfriend not to go to the wedding without me? This would mean he would have to drop out of being a groomsman. The only reason I feel uncomfortable with him going is due to the relentless harassment about the wedding by Rachel. If she had been respectful and left us alone, I would have no problem with him going without me. However, that was not the case. She has continuously disrespected me, my boyfriend, and our relationship. She has no clue what a boundary is. I just want this to be over. Update: my boyfriend talked to the groom. Due to the budget, they had to limit +1s to couples who live together or will be traveling out of town to attend. The wedding is being paid for by the bride's family. It seems like they had an input on who was invited. The groom did not know the full extent of Rachel's behavior towards me and my boyfriend. The groom was also surprised to hear Rachel told my BF in April he would not be getting a +1, as they had not decided at that time. My BF did come to see that it was disrespectful for the bride and groom to not allow him to have a +1. Even if his ex was not attending, the wedding party should have priority over regular guest. With that being said, he does not want to completely burn a bridge with the groom, which I don't want that to happen either. We both agree it will be fine for him to attend the ceremony but skip the reception. The groom said I would be allowed to attend the rehearsal dinner and welcome party. As far as Rachel, my BF plans to ignore her and immediately shut down any of her antics. My BF is truly disgusted with Rachel and her psychotic behavior. Ultimately, she wanted to break things up between me and my BF, but she has only made us stronger. Are you hungry for more slices of stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell to never miss out on any videos. See you tomorrow at Story Slices.